Everybody, welcome to our first Thursday coffee chat. I do think today's topic is going to be a new tradition for me. Already, it's really helped me sit with so much. I feel like these next few months are going to be better for it, for sure. So hopefully, y'all are too. Um, the holidays are full of wonderful things, and we anticipate a lot of it all year. But as with anything, too much of a good thing can kind of knock us off balance. We sometimes forget that we come into this festive season with different levels of tolerance. And some years we have more capacity, other years we come into it a bit exhausted. So you might be wondering, like, what is an interior designer talking about capacity and emotional regulation for? Well, the way my own ADHD brain works is works maybe putting it kindly, darts around, whatever. I do tend to find connecting threads in most things. And designing spaces from that perspective while navigating neurodiversity and complex medical needs that are in our home, I've seen how what we see, hear, smell, feel affects capacity. So when I talk about design with clients, I'm not just talking about style. I'm talking about creating environments that support them, especially during challenging or overstimulating seasons. And that is why I love teaming up with professionals like Lauren, whose work intersects with what I do on the design side. So enough about me and my philosophy. Let's hear from Lauren today.
My name is Lauren. I'm an occupational therapy assistant and I'm based out of Salt Lake City. My background is in what's called sensory integration theory, which is really just the study of how our sensory systems work together, or sometimes don't, to help us stay regulated. I primarily work in an outpatient pediatric clinics with kids who are struggling with regulating their regulating all of those different sensory systems and managing the demands of living in a world where there's a lot of sensory input coming at us all the time. So I'm really excited to talk about this. The first thing I want to talk about is developing traditions that kind of support everyone's sensory needs. And this can be really tricky, especially if you have multiple people in the home who are neurodivergent or have complex needs. So it's great that I love that Rachel is planning this talk 3 weeks before we hit Thanksgiving, because sometimes this takes quite a bit of planning ahead of time. And so some things that I think about are, we have these ideas perhaps from our own childhood or from, the larger society about what tradition should mean. And I I think that sometimes we need to redefine what that is for our family. And even if it's something that you perhaps have done for several years, if you're in a different situation now, it might be time to rethink what that tradition is. So focusing on the meaning behind the tradition rather than just the fact that, well, this is what we've always done, right? Um, I encourage families to sort of plan collaboratively, and now is a great time to sit down and do that and kind of come up with like, okay, like what's happened in the past that we really loved and what maybe do we need to rethink. I had a child that I worked with at one point who she she was talking to what it was her and her mom in the session, and we were talking about the holidays, and she was like, my favorite thing that we do is they would, after they had set up their Christmas tree, they would plan a night where they all slept under the tree. They'd all get out their sleeping bags and sleep underneath the tree. And she was like, that's my favorite part of the holidays. And her mom was like floored because it's something that they'd always done, but it was a small thing to her, right? But for this child, like that was her favorite thing out of everything that happened during the holidays. And just that one moment helped them to kind of reframe like, oh, okay, this is really what's important about this time of year for our family. So, maybe we do a quiet decorating night and we play music, but we keep it a little bit softer. And maybe we keep the overhead lights off, but we, have just the lights of the tree, right? Um, Something that I'll encourage families to do, especially if there's multiple children in the family or just multiple people who feel really strongly about how decorating should go, is everybody gets kind of a zone that they are completely in charge of. And sometimes that means that things are not going to have a cohesive look to them. But again, we're focusing on meaning, right? And so it's much less about what it looks like from the outside and more about, this was, child number one's zone, and this is how they wanted to do it. And this is child number two's zone, and this is how they wanted to do it. And that can also prevent some of the conflicts that can arise sometimes when we're decorating. Um, One thing that I personally really like to do is doing more of like a neighborhood walk rather than attending some sort of larger like holiday event. So, there's lots of um, like I live in Salt Lake, and so like the zoo does like a lights event, and the aquarium does a lights event, and they're beautiful. Um, and they also tend to be really crowded. There's lots of kids running around. Sometimes it's loud. It's really cold because it's outside. Um, and so there's a lot of those factors that I'm not in control of. So if I choose to instead go on, maybe find a neighborhood that decorates a ton and it's also beautiful, and we decide to go for a walk there, I can be much more in control of how long we're going to stay, um, what the sound and sights are going to be. So that's a way to kind of adjust that tradition without necessarily getting rid of the entire thing. Another one that I really encourage people to do is to limit the number of activities that you're going to commit to. And this can be really hard, especially if you live in an area where you have a lot of family nearby. But I promise you, it's one of the most powerful things that you can do to kind of limit the demands on your sensory system. So the thing that people always ask me is like, but how do I do that without offending everybody? So here's some prompts for you. You can say, we're just keeping things simpler this year. So, we're going to be celebrating from home that day. We realize that doing fewer events helps our family to connect more. So we'll be sitting this one out. You can tell them, thank you for the invite, but we're taking a quieter approach this season and we won't make it. But we really appreciate that you included us. Practice these ahead of time. The next thing that's really important to remember around the holidays is for all of us, routines promote regulation. And the holidays is all about disrupting routines. Um, and that can be beautiful, right? That's part of what makes it so special. And it's part of what makes it so dysregulating is we're out of our normal routines from, when we're going to bed to what we're eating to where we're going to who we're seeing. And all of those things contribute to this feeling of overwhelm and dysregulation. So some things that we can do to kind of counteract that is for one, always planning ahead. So we want to keep some core routines as stable as possible. So trying to maintain good sleep. If you're away from home, trying to keep that sleep routine as close as possible. So maybe you have a couple of points that are kind of your anchor points that you're keeping the same. Try as much as you can to have meals that are consistent, even if you're not necessarily eating the foods that you would normally eat. It's really easy with all of the overwhelm that happens. I have lots of clients where they completely forget to eat, and then they get to 4 in the afternoon and they're just completely depleted. So setting reminders for yourself that like, hey, it's 1 o'clock and I need to take in a little bit of something. Same thing goes for water. You'd be surprised how much dehydration can contribute to feelings of dysregulation. And then also planning downtime intentionally and being very, very protective of that downtime for your family. Again, this goes back to that idea of not overscheduling and not overcommitting to every single event. Sometimes the best thing that your family can do is to have a night at home that's quiet. Using visual supports. So that can look like a calendar, a visual schedule, simply just drawing out or writing a list is really wonderful. But whatever you can do to kind of visually plan out what those months are going to look like so that you can prepare yourself ahead of time. If you're working with little kids, plan in buffer time, plan buffer zones. So if it's going to take 30 minutes to get to grandma's house, plan on 45 because inevitably, and a lot of us do this anyway, or at least try to, but especially during the holidays, that's going to significantly decrease your stress if you just sort of build in that extra time ahead of time. And then the last thing is to model co-regulation. Co-regulation is it's magic. It's the magic that helps us to um, keep ourselves and our children and our families calm when there's just chaos. So modeling co-regulation can look like deep breathing, taking quiet moments, having an intentional like family reset break. And again, planning these things ahead of time is super, super important. So the same way that we've talked about, excuse me, talking about what we want traditions to look like this year, also talking about how are we going to make sure that we're keeping our routines the same, and what are the parts of our routine that really really help you. um, is it kind of a great way to start the conversation. I want to talk about some common triggers that can occur around the holidays, and obviously these vary widely. These are just kind of the ones that come up a lot in the clients that I work with. So again, you want to think about those sensory systems, right? Sight, smells, sounds, um, movement, vestibular input, tastes. So areas that are crowded, noisy, places with strong smells, all of those can be common triggers for dysregulation. So again, thinking about some of the places that are um, typically places that we gather around the holidays, those things are very, very prevalent. And so planning ahead is really important. And then the last one that's on this list is change. The change is actually the most dysregulating part of it. So how do we plan for that? We prepare ahead. If you can, if there's a place that okay, we've decided that, us and grandma and grandpa and aunts and uncles are all going to go to, this neighborhood to do a neighborhood walk. See if you can, it's great to drive by that place a couple days ahead with your child so that they can see where they're going and sort of mentally prepare for like, okay, this is how long the walk is going to be. These are some of the sights that we might see, right? Bring comfort items with you for those events. So this can look like noise canceling headphones, a favorite stuffy, even just a fidget. And then identify part of preparing ahead and previewing that place is identifying some calm spaces that you can potentially go to. This is especially great if you're going to someone else's home. Perhaps you're familiar with this place and maybe your child has been there once or twice, but they don't remember it well. So when you get there, talk with your kid about, okay, if you start to get overwhelmed, this is a place that you can go, and let your host know, hey, I've told my child that this is, if they get overwhelmed, they can go here. And then talk with your child about how they can signal to you that that's what they're doing, right? So again, we want to plan these things ahead. We want to talk about these things before we get here. That rehearsal is a really important part of helping these events to be successful. And then the last thing is having sort of like a sensory toolkit that comes with you. So these can be, again, things like a fidget. Sometimes for, older kids or adults, having like a written phrase, write it down on a piece of paper and keep it in your pocket. That's your phrase or mantra that can help you to ground yourself. Sometimes it's having a scent. So they make these little, they're so fun. They make these little necklaces that have like a little piece of felt on the inside of them. And so you can put like some essential oil or something on that necklace, and then all you do is just like take a little sniff, right? For me, I have a specific scent that is super grounding for me, and so I keep it in my bag, and when I need it, I just roll on a little bit, and it's magic. The last thing I want to talk about is creating comfort at home. So again, we want to think about simplifying the load on our sensory system. So think about sights, smells, tastes, visuals. So keeping the lights, keeping the lights calm, all of those things. And again, talking with the different people in your home about what that can look like. And so it's okay if the way that people participate in events looks different, right? It's okay if one person wants to sit and observe rather than engaging. It's about connection. It's not about what it looks like. Um, Finding the magic in those small, cozy, authentic moments and amplifying that and making that the thing that is the most important. Um, it's really, there's a lot of pressure during this time of year to focus on how things are going to look. But I can promise you, like my little girl, the magic is in those little moments, right? It's sitting underneath the tree, snuggled up with mom and dad. It's not the big outing to meet Santa or, the big party at grandma and grandpa's. It's those little tiny, quiet, authentic moments. And that's where the magic really is. Lastly, just some key takeaways again. I'm just going to keep harping on it over and over and over. Prioritize comfort and connection. Always, always. Simplify where you can. Protect your routines. Protect your own regulation. And remember everything needs.
That was so good. And it's amazing how simple so much of this really is. It's just, I think kind of what I've found even just preparing for this is the the preparation ahead of time that you talked about several times. That's what can help get us to where the chaos does really kind of calm down a bit in the season. So thank
And
you.
sometimes it takes somebody giving permission.
Yeah. Yes.
You know,
100%.
and
100%.
yeah, it's open. So
Okay, I am going to switch over. Well, I'm switching over to my screen for the presentation. If anybody has comments or questions for Lauren, please add those in the chat. We would love to get to those at the end for sure. All right. So I want you guys to imagine a rain barrel. This rain barrel, if it's mostly empty, a couple of storms just kind of fill it up. It's not a big deal. But if it's already full, those exact same storms, so those same loud, echoey spaces, crowded gatherings, bright lights, all of that, can make it overflow. And that's where dysregulation comes in. So just kind of keeping that in mind as you go into the season, assess like, where's my rain barrel? Where's my child's rain barrel right now? And setting expectations around the reality of that as opposed to, this kind of preconceived notion of what we want this outing to look like, this trip to go see Santa, this, whatever it is. So just kind of keeping that in mind, that is a kind of a real tangible way to think of our capacity as we're going into the season. Okay, so I've got a couple of slides. I'm not gonna hit on all the areas that I wanted to because I think we really could be here for a bit. But number one, auditory regulation. So the dysregulating activities around that, I mean, whether it's gatherings, you've got loud music, layered noises, background noise, you've got the TV on, you've got some music, you've got people talking. Wow, that is just a lot. And so it's overwhelming because that compounds quickly when it's in large group or these echoey spaces. And it triggers overload in adults and kids, all of us. So some supportive solutions that you can think about using, whether you're out and about or when hosting, is providing those noise canceling headphones like Lauren talked about, or even just like a little, a little bowl with like earplugs in them. I don't know, just kind of taking a cue from teachers and how they have their, sensory tools of choice. Like it gives kids choice. Like you don't have to make a big deal about it. You could even just like put a little label on the table and like if somebody needs them, they can pop one in. Using soft background playlists and use the TV at a lower volume. All of these things really do make a big difference, especially when compounded with other things. Something that I definitely use in projects, but when we're hosting and maybe doing different things than usual around our house, don't underestimate the impact that like rugs, curtains, your upholstery, all of it absorbs sound, and really helps to make places just more comfortable. And creating a quiet retreat space. Lauren, I loved that you mentioned kind of scouting out that space when visiting friends or family and kind of being like, hey, I would have, my son would have really benefited from that for sure. If I had been able to say, thought to say, like, hey, Jackson, if you're getting a little bit, like it's whatever, go sit in here for a little bit. It's your little spot. So I love that. But even as adults, like it's nice to remember that we can provide that for ourselves too. And that's the thing about home is going back to the rain barrel analogy. Your home can kind of be used as like a regulation partner in this, and allow when you are at home to be able to just kind of to re-regulate. And so having those special retreat places that you build into your space, it allows you to go out and about with ease, or a little bit easier anyway. Next up is visual regulation. So the dysregulating activity that we commonly find around the holidays, flashing lights, crowded holiday decor, like excessive gifts, like not, don't underestimate just the excessive, it's creating this like visual noise that just kind of taxes focus and emotional regulation and just leads to irritation and maybe shutdowns. So some thoughts that you could do, simplifying visual input. So toning down decor zones. I really love the idea of the teaming up and kind of delegating different zones to different people to decorate. I love that idea. I was actually talking, my son was home this weekend from college and we were chatting about this. I was chatting about this with he and his dad. And I was like, so what are some things that like you would say from your perspective growing up? And he was like, he said something that was so shocking because we had always put a little Christmas tree in his room because I thought that the lights, that it was just like a very cozy thing. He put his little decorations on it and really sweet, right? And he was like, I would say no colored lights. And I was like, what? Like we had colored lights in your room your entire growing up, like every Christmas all growing up. What do you mean? And he was like, yeah, it's just they can be kind of, and he has the vocabulary now, obviously, but he's like, yeah, they can just be kind of chaotic and just like a lot. And so just like calm lights. It's like, okay, yep, okay. So that cohesive color palette, some people just don't jive with the colored lights and they want something more calming and monotone. Also designating rooms or areas as low stimulation spaces. So maybe there's like, you have I don't know, one room in your home and it just kind of always has a noise machine on and it's got some soft blankets and pillows. And like, you just kind of know that you can go in there at any time and curl up for a bit. There's that. And then trying to kind of keep things out of sight as much as possible when not in use. I know that can get really tricky, but one thing that is good for a lot of my ADHD clients is storage pieces that, I have one behind me over here and it's where I keep a lot of my office supplies in and it's just a buffet. It's not intended to be an office workstation, but if I can kind of schlep everything in there, it's helpful. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking of, just ways to kind of calm things visually. And then I would say prioritizing warm lighting over cool. This is like all the time. But specifically around the holidays, it's pretty impressive how this can get. So you see this little example here. When you are doing warm lights and you're thinking of the evenings at home, cozied up, this tone, number one, it's not going to impact your melatonin production like cool lights do over here, but also it just feels more settling. And then an example of outdoor lights, like you would think this is a black and white picture. It is not. It is just those like white LED lights went up against, super warm temperature ones. And then this even goes for your multicolor lights if you go that route. So a lot of the LED lights that you see that are multicolor have those really blue, white on them. And so opt for kind of just the warmer ones. They usually look yellow in the box. When you pull them out of the box, you can kind of look at them in the store. It looks yellow instead of even white, but kind of opting for the warmer versus cooler is going to be a really good thing to do for lighting. Okay, and then my last section, it's a bit of a doozy, but we're just going to read through it real quick. But this is social and routine regulation. And these holidays, they really are just, it's like you drop a grenade into routine, and we're all kind of hoping for the best. So whether it's long or late night gatherings, unfamiliar faces, back-to-back events, unpredictable transitions, financial, and as grown-ups, financial and decision fatigue in regard to like gifting and traveling, hosting expectations, the emotional weight of family dynamics, grief, loneliness, all of those things around the holidays. And then, yeah, loss of routine, productivity guilt, sleep disruption, like all of this. But again, with the proper planning, and you know what your specific triggers are and the triggers of your children, you can kind of address that. So some ways, these are 10 supportive solutions for the social and routine regulation aspect. And it is designating those personal reset spaces, even in shared homes or while traveling, as much as possible. And obviously, we know families that there's a lot of layers here. So, doing as good as you can with this stuff, but just keeping it in mind is helpful. Okay. Again, noise canceling headphones, quiet rooms, and then agreeing on quiet hours or screen-free time with your housemates, partner, especially when traveling, just kind of trying to get some of that routine in. A pre-packed sensory kit. For adults, it could look like earplugs, sunglasses, peppermint gum, some kind of fidget that you like, that kind of thing. Some of my favorite things are these low effort regulation tools like warm bath, weighted blanket, Epsom salt with some essential oils in the bath. Like these things just kind of can create some downtimes that are very coveted during the holidays and year round. And building in solo downtime and quality time with your inner circle. So being very intentional with your yeses. And you don't think of it as we're having to say no. Try to reframe it as we are leaving room for yes and comfort. Yes to activities that we really want to do, and yes to those nights under the tree, watching a movie, and like simplicity. So yeah, if you can if you take away anything, reframing the no into that way of thinking of it, I think would be massively helpful for all of our holidays. And then pre-plan exit strategies or rest breaks during events and traveling. So you kind of go into it knowing like, I want to spend an hour and a half at this, and that is okay. Like giving you permission to be like, that is fine. And if you do feel the need to, say goodbye, say goodbye to the host, have something kind of prepared. And so that you just kind of practice it, rolls off your tongue, and you're good. But using scripts and text templates, these things kind of help you let go some of the guilt around it or the awkwardness if you prepare a little bit for that. And then visual cues and reminders to just maintain your routines, like whether it's medication, wellness, whatever it is that you have going on. If we get caught up in this, and that, I would be one of your clients that forgets to eat until 4 p.m. So there's a lot going on. And even if you're resorting to alerts on your phone as reminders to eat, just do it. And then anchor your days with grounding sensory rituals as you can. So one for me is my husband and I have done this since we were dating. We've always prioritized Sunday morning coffee. And that's something that even, when we travel and we're say at We were at his mom's house in Houston. She was a very kind of ritual routine person like that too. And so coffee with her turned into a thing. But some of those, like, again, simple, sweet, quiet moments, you can keep those and turn them into little traditions around the holidays too. So yeah, playlist, scents, lighting, all of that, you can kind of create a space in your home. So even if you can't take it with you to wherever you're traveling or this and that, at least at home, you have done some of these things and prepared some of these ways so that it's a reset spot for you and your family before you go out and about. Okay, guys, I am done. This is all I've got. Um, Everybody is going to get an email with this deck and a little one pager for both adults and kids. That way you have kind of everything at a glance as you prepare all of your things for the upcoming season. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. And I just want to open it up. If anybody has any questions or thoughts, we would love to hear it. You can either unmute yourself or type it in the comments, however you would like to. And if you don't, that's fine.
I did see Lindsay put a question in here a little bit back. Lindsay says, do you have suggestions for downtime for kids, things that are most beneficial for them during the time? So this is like the classic occupational therapy answer. It depends. It depends on your kid, though. And so you probably, if you sit and think about it, and depending on your child's age, you might be able to have that conversation with them too. Um, but it's going to vary based on your kid. And it's those things that help them to recenter. So I have kids that it's sitting and doing Legos. Sometimes if there's siblings that are part of the situation, sometimes it's sitting and doing Legos alone, away from little brother or sister who might come in and mess it up, right? And so that child might have to have a designated place or a room where they can go to have that separate time. Sometimes it's reading, sometimes it's screen time. And as long as you're using that intentionally and you're planning some time before and after to regulate, that's okay. We all use screens to regulate at different times, and it's okay. As the occupational therapy practitioner in the room, I'm saying it's okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's kind of dependent on your kid, but honestly, parents know their kids best, and so you probably already kind of know what some of those things would be. It's just kind of maybe working with your child to figure out what the ideal situation is around it.
And I wonder too, a lot of kids I would think would feel a bit empowered and like happy that you asked. To kind of meet that out together and come up with some thoughts. So, and then they may be more excited to go do that thing. Katie says, I did hear from someone who's ADHD that she likes the multicolor and her husband likes the white. So they bought a tree with the color changing remote so they can make it change and do what they need to in those moments. Actually, we have done the same thing and I love it. Because yeah, sometimes I'm in the mood for the multicolor lights and sometimes I want just like the warm lights. Because the thing is about the tree that we had that did that, the multicolor setting didn't have white lights. And so it did just throw off really like kind of like dark, cool light. And so we actually added some extra strands of the warm white so that when that was on, we also had the warm white too. So you can get real creative with it depending on how in depth you want to go.
And that's called compromise, marriage compromise.
It is. So glad. So Rebecca, thank you so much. I'm so glad that these tips have been helpful for you guys. And then Kate says, any suggestions for how to navigate conversations with family about the importance of maintaining routines, even during the holidays and just how it kind of affects dysregulation? What would you say about that?
I'm like saying all of the things out loud that you shouldn't say.
That's what this place is for.
I would I
That's
would chat GPT it. I would chat GPT it.
That's what I was thinking in my head. I'm like, because I can come up with some really helpful, specific answers for you to your specific situation.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's tricky. One of the things that I'm experiencing in my own life, because like I said at the beginning, and I'm sorry if this is one of the parts that cut out, is I have a young child and he's my first.
Mhm.
And so we as a family are now having to create routines, whereas previously we were part of a different family system, right? And um, that's sticky. It's tricky.
Yeah.
And so I think that, you know, it can be really difficult for when you have multiple generations kind of
Mhm.
figuring out what those new routines look like and honoring everybody's feelings. But ultimately, you have to remember, you know, like my kid gets this one childhood, right? And they have to be the focus because they're not going to be able to self advocate and make those decisions for themselves. Um, but yeah, chat gpt is my best buddy when it comes to those types of things.
It really does help clarify some of the nuance with it that is required for navigating it with family because it's family. You love them. You all want to get along and come to the same point. And sometimes having an additional set of examples or just kind of thinking through it differently can help give your family members that aha moment of like, oh, that's what she's trying to accomplish and for her child. Because
Mm-hmm.
you are your child's advocate in a way they can't be. Okay, let's see. Katie, yes, we all always need to remember that screens used appropriately are okay, and it is nice to get that. I love permission. I love when professionals gives me permission for different things. I'm like, okay, it is fine. Okay, we'll calm down about it. Okay, those are all the questions that we have. Okay, Lauren, thank you
No,
so
this has been really
much.
fun. Yeah, it's they've been nice reminders for me too. Like
Good.
I do this stuff all day and I still sometimes need the reminder that like, oh, we need to plan ahead. We need to,
Yeah, yeah. And
we
I
need
was
to have some
thinking,
intention here.
yes, ChatGPT can help with the plan ahead, like create a plan. Anyway, not that we need more ChatGPT in our lives, but it can help with the pre-planning because sometimes my brain is so, in whatever zone I'm in with work or whatever I'm navigating, that it's a helpful brainstorming tool. And just to give me some bullet points of like, okay, here. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally.
Okay, guys. All right. Well, everybody enjoy the rest of your weeks and the holidays. We will see you next month. Okay, bye everybody.